With the recent release of Splatoon 3, all focus is on it, and rightfully so. Splatoon 3 is great, but that's not what we're here to talk about. I am shifting a little focus back to Splatoon 2 to ask a simple question. Is it still worth buying? Don't get me wrong, Splatoon 2 is great, but in a multiplayer-focused shooter, a new release normally means the last one is pretty much replaced, especially if they're on the same console. I mean, the original Splatoon has some life in it, but that's mainly due to the people who have a Wii U and haven't made the jump to Switch yet. A very small minority, but a minority nonetheless. But Splatoon 2 and 3 are different. Both are on the Switch, and while not everyone can afford to upgrade, it's safe to say most Splatoon Switch fans are jumping over to 3. So, in this year where you could buy Splatoon 3, where almost everything is improved on and or expanded, is it still worth getting 2? Well, if you don't have either, obviously you should go for 3, that's a no-brainer. The multiplayer is just a more refined 2, and there are a ton of quality of life improvements. But, if you have 3 already, should you double dip? To decide, let's look at all that Splatoon 2 has to offer. Let's first take a look at Splatoon 2's online. Obviously, while there isn't much of a reason to come back to it after 3, it does have some stuff exclusive to it. First of all, it has a unique map selection in comparison to 3. Pretty much all the maps aren't returning, so every map here is different. But a slightly more substantial difference is the specials. While the jump from Splatoon 1 to Splatoon 2 had much more of a substantial difference in their special lineup, Splatoon 2 still has a decent handful of specials that aren't returning in 3. The Ink Armor, the Stingray, the Bomb Launcher, the Baller, and the Bubble Blower. All of these are pretty fun and enjoyable to use at least once, especially the Baller. And in addition to that, Splatoon 2 also has some unique properties in its ranked modes in comparison to 3. Splatoon 3 did us a courtesy and updated the ranked modes in 3 to be overall better, but if you want to try out how they were in 2, I feel like there's enough of a difference to at least be somewhat interesting to revisit. But, admittedly, these aren't a very good reason to get a game. If you don't already have 2, these changes aren't really worth buying another game for. Well, it might be fun for a bit. I feel like after a few rounds you would just go back to 3's online. But Splatoon 2 doesn't only have online. Story mode, also called Hero Mode, is the single-player campaign for the Splatoon series. Every game has contained one, and 2's story mode is considered... it's considered bad. Well, bad is probably too harsh a word actually, but people generally think it's pretty lackluster, and I have to say I do agree. Every level doesn't really feel distinct, and the levels are pretty easy because they have to account for the use of 9 different weapons. Story also really isn't anything to write home about. The great Zapfish and Callie, a member of the Squid Sisters from the first game, have both gone missing. You gotta get them back. Everything ends up just feeling a bit disconnected, and the levels themselves aren't really memorable or particularly fun to play through. I mean, it's not painful or anything, but I'm not jumping at the chance to play these levels. And it doesn't help that it's constantly taking away control of how you want to play the stage. Want to get better at a specific weapon? Well, fuck you, here's one you're forced to use. There is the upside that you get to try every weapon, but sometimes you're given one that just makes the level you're playing through a complete pain. Like, Sheldon, I get it, you want to gather more data on weapons, but I'm trying to save someone here. I feel like maybe just giving bonuses for using certain weapons would be good. Like, if you use the sniper on this level, it'll give you a bonus of extra eggs to use for upgrades, stuff like that. Which make you still want to try out new weapons without taking the control of that out of the player's hands. That's probably my biggest problem with the game as someone who hasn't played Splatoon 1. But, for those who did, apparently a good portion of the story mode was kind of ripped from Splatoon 1, so if you've played that, you've already kind of played this one, which is super lame. For levels this simple, it kind of sucks that they didn't go out of their way to at least try to make them distinct from 1, but again, this isn't a huge issue for me. Another smaller thing I take issue with is that the hub worlds kind of suck. The first one is alright, but after that they just kind of look like someone had a good time in a level creator. They are really annoying to progress through, and if you want to get through the levels in the order that it's presented as, like 1 through 5 or whatever, it's kind of annoying to try and find the one that you actually want to play. I think it would have been neat to have them be a bit more like an actual location to contrast the levels looking the exact same. No joke, sometimes when I wasn't paying that much attention, I would jump into the next level, and then I would start to go through the hub because my brain was just like, ah yes, the level. And then I would call myself stupid and have to jump back. Now, with all that being said, I don't think it's nearly as bad as some people make it out to be. It's alright, the levels are decent, and once you actually beat it, you can go back and play it with any of the weapons. And holy shit, it is a much nicer experience. Playing through the whole campaign with a single weapon actually makes it flow really nice, and you can get some good practice with the weapon types. The collectibles also, while being completely unnecessary, are kind of neat. Not the fish, but the sunken scrolls give a bit more lore into the Splatoon world as a whole, and it's fun to flip through once you found all of them. I'd say, if you have Splatoon 2, the story mode is a decent introduction to the game, and it's decently fun as well. Is it worth buying the game for? God no! It's a good supplement to the rest of the game, but that rest of the game is online, which is just better in 3. So is there anything worth getting Splatoon 2 for? Well, there is one more thing. Octo Expansion is the paid DLC content that was added to Splatoon 2 after launch. It is a brand new single-player campaign with 80 different levels, challenges, and unique scenarios never before seen in a single-player campaign in the Splatoon series. It makes use of specials and is actually really challenging. It allows you to pick weapons, there's a good story, and the levels are super well designed. Each are tailor-made for the weapons chosen for the levels. It contains a way better map system as well, more characters, more rewards, and it adds a bunch of characterization for the idols in Splatoon 2, Pearl, and Marina. The expansion, if we're going by individual levels, is well over twice the size of the normal campaign, and while technically the default story mode has more replay value, I don't really know if you want to beat the same campaign 9 different times with a different weapon. I mean, if that's your thing, go for it, but Octo Expansion definitely has far better content there with each level. Most levels have 3 weapons to choose from, and they are far more fun to replay than the hero mode. The levels are actually tailored to each weapon and use the unique aspects of Splatoon far better than hero mode usually does. Special weapons also get much more of a spotlight and are super fun to use in the levels overall. If I had one complaint, I think the bosses are kind of lazy. Most of them are just harder versions of the ones in story mode, and while that's fine, I kinda wish they were a bit more unique. But usually the twists they're given is unique enough to still be really fun, and that's really the only complaint I have with Octo Expansion. And the actually unique bosses only found in Octo Expansion, holy hell, they are fantastic. It's all such a great package and sets a new standard for any future single-player content in Splatoon. This is the reason people are happy that 3 is getting DLC and aren't mad that it was announced before the game even came out. It's because of how damn good this one is. The only problem is that it's going to cost more on top of the game. It's $20, and if you bought a new copy of Splatoon, that's $80 right there for a Splatoon with outdated multiplayer. So, is it worth it? It kind of depends. There's certainly a lot of content there to play with, and while not all of it's a winner, it's not bad either. If you enjoy Splatoon, you'll probably at least somewhat enjoy the offerings single player has, and everyone enjoys Octo Expansion, so that's a surefire hit. But 80 bucks for all of it? I'd say no. But that's also assuming you're buying a $60 copy of Splatoon 2, which is just a bit silly. You can easily find this game in the $20 range now that 3 is out, so is it worth 40 bucks? Maybe. I mean, I enjoyed my time with the single-player offerings in Splatoon, and for 40 bucks it ain't bad. I mean, have you seen some of the games they're releasing for 60 bucks now? It's worth more than a lot of those. And especially if you already have the Nintendo Switch Online expansion, picking up a $20 copy of Splatoon 2 might be worth it for Octo Expansion alone, but overall it's up to the person. Is a good single-player Splatoon campaign worth it? I'm not sure, but I think Splatoon 2, as a game, is far from being completely replaced. Even if the new DLC for 3 is as good or even better than Octo Expansion, they'll be separate things. And even in its multiplayer, Splatoon 2 has some deviations from 3, so while 3 is definitely the game to go for, I don't think 2 is without merit. So, to answer the question I posed in the beginning, is Splatoon 2 still worth buying? I don't know. Make your own decisions. I'm not a financial advisor.